Good Thursday morning, everyone. We've made it past the hump and the weekend will soon be here. On today's program, we are featuring an interview with the wonderful Max Barrows. Max is with Green Mountain Self-Advocates in Vermont, as well as SARTAC. He was the keynote speaker of the People First conference a couple years ago. Max will talk about what he has been doing to stay at home, be safe, and about the use of technology to stay connected. That's all coming up in just a few minutes. But first, we'd like to let you know that we constantly update information on both our People First of West Virginia page and on our website, www.peoplefirstwv.org. Check them out today.
That's right, Liz. The information changes daily and sometimes hourly, whether it's from the federal government like Social Security or the IRS, or Governor Jim Justice when he makes announcements about schools or other things, or the local health department. So we keep a list of links to all of the most updated information so that you can get it straight from the source and don't rely just on what somebody heard or posted on Facebook unless it's from an official Facebook page of that agency. You'll get the right information right on that spot at peoplefirstwv.org.
And we're also concerned with your physical, mental health, and safety. As the days stretch on, you may feel overwhelmed. So while we certainly want you to stay home and safe and keep washing your hands, make sure you do things to relax and take your mind off things. If you do need help, there are links available for WV211 or WV211 from the United Way, Help for WV, and other agencies that you can call in your area if you have any mental health concerns.
And so you don't have to listen to the whole program to find a favorite interview, since we repeat these things about the webpage each time. You can find mindfulness or music. We have a section for the links below the list at peoplefirstwv.org where we've got those interviews all separated out so you can then just go to a particular one and enjoy it whenever you like. But now it's time for today's interview.
Well, joining us today is Max Barrows, and if that name sounds very familiar, he is with the Self-Advocacy Resource and Technical Assistance Center, SARTAC, that we've talked about before, but he is also with Green Mountain Self-Advocates, and we had him as the keynote speaker a couple of years ago at our People First conference. And so while we're talking about different things going on, a couple of times a week, on Mondays and Thursdays, they host a talk about things, and so I thought, well, we'll just see if we can find out what Max is doing. So thank you very much, Max, for joining us again. We'll find out what you've been up to and how you're managing all this stuff while we're staying at home and staying safe.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're really glad you could be here, Max, and I guess we'll just jump right into it. Like Doug said, we're kind of curious and want to share with people that are listening the things that you've been doing in response to the coronavirus and how you've been reaching out to people using technology.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you guys are very curious to know what we've been doing when this coronavirus pandemic, I would say outbreak, began. So the thing of it is, staying at home really has changed how we function in business. The good news is I have the kind of job that allows me to still work from home. And what a good way to kind of capitalize on using technology like Zoom, like what we're using now, to really keep in touch with self-advocates throughout our state of Vermont and even around the country during this time of uncertainty. You know, we've been doing that. One of the things also that local groups are doing within our state is they've been having meetings also using technology. So, you know, this kind of technology has been really like helping people maintain communication amongst each other as self-advocates as they are feel stuck at home during this time of uncertainty.
Very good. And a quick follow-up, why do you think it's important for people to stay connected right now?
The feeling of when you can't go anywhere, or you feel like you can't go anywhere, the feeling of loneliness can kick in, and also it's a way to kind of cope with having to be like stuck in one place. It's good to keep in touch with friends, family, whoever you may know and trust, just to kind of ease your mind into what we as self-advocates and we as people in general are dealing with.
Obviously, we want to get back to in-person meetings, but have you found some people that are able to participate in electronic meetings that maybe through transportation or some other issue would not be able to participate? And so when we get back to being able to meet in person, this is something that maybe groups could adapt to include more people in their meetings who can't necessarily get there, to try and make a positive out of people learning who before might have been reluctant to use technology. Now, oh, well, I can use that. Well, good. Now let's invite even more people to participate instead of only the people that can physically get to a room.
Absolutely, Doug. There are people that, with no doubt in my mind, that been taking advantage of this technology and being taught this technology to stay connected when, sometimes they have issues with transportation and going into in-person meetings. It's a way for them to also, kind of be connected and also be involved in self-advocacy. So, yes.
And what are some self-advocacy activities that you can be doing now using technology?
Any sort of fun activity that can work and that can be catchy. We've been during one thing that we've been doing is we got this from another call that I was on using this technology was we can do breathing exercises where all the participants participate after they join and get on in a breathing exercise that we do just to kind of get going with whatever it is we're going to be talking about in a meeting of some sort. And sometimes we ask so-called ice-breaking question, for example, what is one thing that you are pleased with that you don't have to do now that you're so-called social distancing yourself? We say physical distancing, but stuff like that. You got to get creative, but also do it where it works using a different form of communication in this regard. Connection.
That's really great. I would have never thought of that. That is a fantastic idea. How about in terms of, I know there's always things that we encourage people to contact their lawmakers or research different bills and see what needs to be done in their local community or their county or their state. Are there self-advocacy things people could be doing that in the past they may say, well, I don't have enough time to find out who my congressperson is or find out about that issue? Are there things like that people can be doing while they're social distancing to then, once we get back together, plan those in-person meetings or calling their lawmakers or finding out what city council's doing or just finding other things out to be more independent?
I think it depends on the person and it depends on the state. But I know that there's been, in that regard, well, I'll just have myself as an example. I know that I had an opportunity to testify about some of the changes that should be made when people with disabilities have to, go to the hospital through using this technology. And I've testified about how, people with disabilities should have somebody go with them to the hospital. And I think there's ways you can have connection and communicate with policymakers within your state, but yet I think that is something that I think has to be worked out with the self-advocates and whoever the representative is in their area or their state to set that up. But I think that as long as there's a passion there to do that, to take advantage of this technology, I, believe it can work. It has worked with me when I testified about some of the changes that need to be made to accommodate people with disabilities where they could go to a hospital during this time of uncertainty.
Well, we thank you for that. That was an important change and a need that needed to be addressed, and we appreciate your stepping up and doing that. It sounds as though you've developed some relationships over a period of time that led people to come to you as an expert on that topic. Can you talk about when you started developing relationships in your advocacy in general?
Well, I mean, that goes back to when I started being involved in self-advocacy, even before I had this job as outreach director. I think it starts with knowing yourself. That's the most important thing. And then if you know yourself and how your disability, works and how it has an effect on how you live life, I think you connect with other folks that have been through or are going through the same, if not similar, experience as you are. And then through that, there's a bond that builds. And I think that groups like grassroots, this is why our grassroots in self-advocacy, local groups throughout the state and the country are like really the heart and soul of self-advocacy, because what I call the peer-to-peer connection. When peers connect with each other, they realize that they are not alone, and they, when they join self-advocacy, when they connect with other peers, they get advice from peers that they meet that have been through the same, if not similar experience as them. And through that, there's an atmosphere that is created to where, people can like express themselves and share what is on their mind and get advice on how to overcome whatever barriers and challenges that they're going through in life. And just how that atmosphere and those connections really tap into like confidence, or as another word, self-esteem, where people make changes in life that are big. And I think with that, there's just a power of voice that comes from our grassroots, from people that experience the challenges growing up as a disability and how they believe in each other. And then we just become a force to be reckoned with when it comes to speaking up the truth to power, because the truth comes from us. Who knows us better than we know ourselves? I think working that into what you are referring to and what you asked me, I think is huge in that regard.
Thank you. And I love that. The truth comes from us. That's very good.
We obviously invited you to speak at the conference because of your accomplishments and the success but there are many people who maybe are not as good at speaking in public or doing what they do, and they look to, Max can go do that. I really don't. How do we encourage people to, whatever their level of ability or skill set is, to write those letters or make those connections and make their voice heard? Because everyone has a voice, but a lot of people are reluctant to express it. What would you suggest people do to express what's going on in their life, and maybe not on your level of speaking to Congress or the legislature, but even just writing letters to their lawmakers or what have you? How would you encourage other people to start down the path of making that important voice heard?
This was definitely something that I had to tap into myself. I, at one point, was shy and had stage fright and all that. And I learned things about myself that I probably was not as aware of in terms of strength. I think what it comes down to, Doug, is just believing in the person. I think, honestly, whatever that the individual is good at, support and accommodate them to recognize whatever strengths they have to speak up. You also need to understand that some people may have come from a background where they're not used to speaking up because they have been they've just been used to having other people make decisions for them. And because of that, that is a barrier. That can be a barrier for people to be reluctant to, have a voice, or if they know, or if their voice is there, they have not really been taught or have been familiarized with the skills that they have to have their voice heard. That can be tricky to support a person to overcome. However, I think that it comes down to believing in people. And what I do is I take my leadership skills and I basically use them as a way to help others overcome that barrier. And yes, seeing me do it may encourage other people to kind of overcome that barrier. Like it takes, I think, like believing in the person. And again, what I said before, people need to recognize who they are and like know how their disability works, because that's really where everything starts, and just knowing themselves and then build off that.
That is really good. I think it's very important that you said that. A lot of people may listen to you or when you were speaking, and when you just said, they're probably thinking in their mind, Max was quiet and shy at one time. So that's great to show that, even because many people may identify with that and say, well, I am too. Okay, Max is a great example to show that with time and support, you can overcome that and make your voice be heard.
Yes.
What are you doing to maintain your schedule? Are you still coming to work? Is doing your call a couple of times a week, is that keeping you on schedule? How has your life been affected directly by just in your routines by the stay-home orders and things like that?
Because I work from home, I figured out, like, I've been comfortable of using, Zoom to get support that I need from support staff that I have working with me using this. We've taken advantage of like technology such as Zoom, Google Docs, Google Slides, and ways that we can still be working even though we're not working in the office. I can't speak for how other people do it in other areas of the state or country, but we've just, began a routine of where we still get the things done that we need to get done, just doing it in a different format, taking advantage of all the technology that we personally have learned to use over time.
Very good. And the last question that we've been asking everyone is, to de-stress, I tell people that I like to turn up music loud and clean my house really well. And everybody that we've talked to, we've asked them specifically what they're doing to de-stress at this time. Is there something that you're doing
to de-stress?
Yes.
Well, I can tell you right now, every day around my work schedule, especially after work, I go for walks up and down my road. And that is one way to, kind of like to de-stress. And I've also been doing a lot of like, just cooking and even just cleaning around the house when I have to. And I would also say too that sometimes I just find things to do for fun around the house, such as have like an outdoor fire in my outdoor stove, and maybe like when I get the chance, like I may do some yard work here and there when it comes to spring cleaning sometimes. But I think also what affects it is the time of year for me. I'm glad that the snow is gone up here, even though it's still chilly at times, and April is like a whacked month. But as the weather gets warmer, I'm definitely going to spend more time outdoors. But I think that's one way I de-stress.
Very good. Max Barrows is joining us. We appreciate that. Max is with Green Mountain Self-Advocates in Vermont and was the keynote speaker at our annual People First conference a couple of years ago, which was wonderful, and we wanted to talk to him again. And you actually have an opportunity to talk to Max and a bunch of other people by joining their Zoom conference every Monday and Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. And we can certainly provide you with the call-in number just by phone, or if you want to use the Zoom app on your phone, they've got a great video that tells how you can do that, and you can join them. So thank you very much, Max. We appreciate you and SARTAC and Green Mountain for all the work that you're doing, and you personally for all the information you've given us today. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Max. It was great talking to you.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you.
That was a lot of great information, and we want to keep providing you interviews that are helpful. If you have an idea for someone we can talk to, just let us know. And if you are doing something fun like gardening or making crafts or painting or even baking, send us pictures. We'd love to see them and share them with everyone. Looking ahead to Friday, we've got a great interview with Kevin Smith. Kevin was the very first self-advocate coordinator for West Virginia and actually helped bring People First to the state. We'll hear some history as well as what Kevin is doing while staying home and staying safe. That's all tomorrow. Talk to you then.